Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the TGIF Business Networking Hangout. This is your host, Melanie MacDonald. I'm a brand identity and outreach strategy consultant. Happy holidays. You can see my overlay here is a little festive today. I used the draw tool inside the Hangouts to create this lovely Santa cap. And in case you're not familiar with the draw tool, you can draw things that stick to your head when you move around to the person, or you can draw things that are in position on a screen. If you've never used it, check it out. It's a nice tool to use if you need to add, for example, a call out. Call this phone number. And you don't have enough room in your lower third, you can always use the draw tool. So good morning. Today we are going to talk about a somewhat holiday-centric but timely and timeless topic, and that is beating depression so we can get back to business. As small business owners and solopreneurs, we can often have bouts of depression that make it very hard to deal with the day-to-day tasks that come with running a business, especially when we find ourselves kind of running a business without having that lifelong dream of running a business, without having necessarily planned for it. And the reason I say that is because that was my own experience. I had a job, you all have heard me say this before, that I loved, and I had actually planned on working there until I retired. And then the big bad economy came, and layoffs were everywhere. I was one of those people that was laid off and live in a fairly small town, not really largely populated area, not like a big city where you have more job opportunities. And so I found myself really having to go into business on my own out of necessity. Well, being that happened, I didn't have all the foresight and planning that people who really want to go into business have on their own. And even people who want to oftentimes don't realize all the trials and the tribulations and the work that comes with having your own business. I've heard so many small business people say that they're going into business because they want to work shorter hours, right? And I know all you entrepreneurs and solopreneurs out there are laughing when you hear that, shorter hours, right? So those are just some of the factors that kind of get into things that can affect your mood as a business person. When you go from an environment at work where you have a lot of support, where you have maybe people who help in administrative duties, you don't have to do the billing, you're just doing the task that you were hired to do and the duties that you were hired to do. And then you go into your own business situation where you have to do now everything. You have to know about the finances, the taxes, all this other stuff that can be mind-boggling. It really gets to be a lot. So we all know also that the holidays bring about their own special sort of mood swing areas. We are bombarded with visions of what the holidays should be. We should be laughing, we should be happy, we should be with our families, and of course our families are all perfect, and all that family time spent together is no stress, and it's beautiful and joyous. And this is what we are sort of ingrained to think with all the shows that we see on TV and the movies out there. And oftentimes the reality can be a little different. Families, you know, sometimes fight, especially if you have siblings and you disagree and you grow up with them, you know, kids fight. And then sometimes that goes into adulthood. If you're the one whose house everybody is coming over to, well, you know, now you've got people you've got to put up, you've got people you've got to feed, you've got to make sure that everybody's particular diets are met. You have all this cooking and cleaning, and, you know, are they helping? Are they not helping? Do you wish they were helping more? So sometimes there's a lot of things that happen around the holidays that we all hear about, the Christmas blues and the holiday blues. So I'm very excited today to be talking about this topic. I think it's a great time of year to talk about this topic. Now that I've done my introduction, I'm going to actually turn my hat off because I don't want it to be distracting. There. Okay, I have two great guests today that are going to help us discuss this topic. that those are Pamir Kiciman, who is a spirituality and Reiki master. And he's going to really help us learn about the mind-body-spirit connection and how keeping that connection in tune and balanced can help us fight those blues. And we also have Amiee Wyant, who has a background in massage therapy, also very therapeutic, and who is into now preparing and creating healthy balms and tonics and foods, things that bring nutrition into our bodies, because taking care of our bodies will help us take care of our minds. Now, I want to make one disclaimer, and that is that we are not talking about severe chronic symptoms or things like bipolar disorder or severe depression, anything like that. This is not a medical show. This is a business networking show. So we're talking more about the kind of everyday blues and stress and the occasional bouts of depression. Not that they're not severe, not that they're not really awful, but not ones that require professional, medical, long-term help. So let's get started. I'm going to have our guests and panelists introduce themselves first. Let's start with Brian Rowley. He is a solopreneur who is joining us in the Peanut Gallery today. Brian, please give yourself an introduction.
Okay, my name is Brian Rowley. My email address is mousehelp@roselle.com, and that's how I usually start every introduction. But I write. I love writing. I have many blogs. I am trying very hard to help people to understand the importance of content and new content and engaging content to be added to their websites and blogs for the purpose of bringing people to their website to allow them to, who is that? Allow them to see whatever it is you have to offer for sale. I put my facial hair on for Melanie since she likes that.
Awesome.
Brian Rowley, that's my name. Mousehelp@roselle.com.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Great intro. Amiee, let's go to you next. Please introduce yourself. Let's keep this introduction short. Then we'll have Pamir's introduction short, and then we'll get into the longer introduction for both of you, where you can start talking about, how you got interested in what you're doing.
My name is Amiee Wyant. I am currently the president of Love is a Way of Life and a Place of Healing, where we create organic balms, teas, tonics, things like that to help improve quality of life.
Awesome, thank you. Pamir.
Hi. Hi, I'm Pamir Kiciman, and I help people just live in a more connected way, connected with themselves, their loved ones, the world around them, and nature. And you can find all about what I do at reikihelp.com/blog that you see on my image there at the bottom.
Awesome, thank you. Now I'm going to go back to Amiee. Amiee, tell us a little bit your longer introduction now. What's your background? How did you get started doing what you're doing? And how did you know that you wanted to do this business, and kind of how did you get started with this business?
Well, first, I've always really had a goal and just kind of drive to help people. So from that, I actually became a massage therapist, and knowing that I didn't really want to do the fluffy stuff, I really wanted to help people. So eventually, I was a massage therapist for 12 years, and I was a therapeutic medical soft tissue therapist for 7 years, working in an office with an integrated pain management physician and an acupuncturist. That being said, we didn't do a lot of prescriptions or allopathic medicines outside of our office. So I really started to think over the years how I could help my patients naturally. So I started developing shower scrubs for pain, different teas, different remedies, different balms, so you could breathe, you can sleep, for muscle aches and pains, because it's really important to know that what goes on your body goes in your body and actually has an effect on you. So from that, it just really came from a place of love, and we just started, my partner and I just started really creating really healthy, thoughtful products to help people.
And how did you know which ingredients were good for what remedies? Was this something that there are classes for, or is it something you just kind of learned as you went along in your experience as a massage therapist?
A little bit of both. I've always been interested in herbs and plants and flowers since I was a little kid. So I've always just been learning through basically life. And I also did take some classes, went up to Brighton Bush in Oregon and did some herbal classes, some herbal conferences, and just really did a lot of self-study. And anything that I kind of want to do, I just study the ingredients and really kind of meditate on it and ask for help to know what I should use. So it's really a combination of things, research and intuition.
I'm a big fan of herbal remedies. I like to use them myself, so I'm really thrilled to have you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pamir, let's go to you. Tell us a little more now about your background, about what got you interested in what you're doing, what got you interested in the mind-body-spirit connection, and how you got started in your business and how you learned everything that you know. And unmute yourself, please.
There we go. My background is in the arts. I'm an English literature major, and I caught the acting bug very early on, basically in elementary school. So what I always tell people is that I made a transition from the literary and dramatic arts to the spiritual living and healing arts. And I really loved the art world. I loved literature. I loved being on stage, acting, any kind of creative process, really. There are a lot of painters in my family, and it was very fulfilling for a long time. But there was always kind of something missing, and I was never really sure what that was. And the arts I was involved in wasn't really bringing me that missing piece. So it took me quite a while, until like maybe my mid-30s, before I discovered meditation and the power of healing, and especially self-healing. And then that missing piece really clicked into place, and I literally just dropped everything else that I used to do. I stopped reading fiction, and I stopped trying to get acting jobs, and I spent about 4 years pretty much in isolation, although I live in a city, without TV, just learning to meditate, practicing meditation, healing myself, and kind of like Amy, also a lot of self-study. We live in a great time where there are so many resources available to us, unlike any other time in history. So you can actually gain a lot of knowledge quite easily. And these things that I did for myself, the meditation, the healing, worked so radically for me. It was such a 360 that I was basically left choiceless as to what I would do when I grew up, which was to help others in the way that I was helped. And that's how I started my Reiki business and everything else that I do within that structure.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. What I really find interesting is that both you, Pamir, and you, Amy, have come from a background of pain management in some ways, and practicing pain management. And I think pain management is kind of key in battling some of these bouts of depression, because being in pain, regular pain, ongoing pain, is something that can definitely affect your spirit, affect your psyche. So how does pain management, do you think, help in terms of relieving the spirit? Is there more to it? If someone is in pain and they are feeling depression, is there more that they have to deal with than just the pain? Once they relieve the pain, do you find that the people who you've helped are still feeling depression or not? Does the pain going away make their depression going away? or oftentimes are there other factors also contributing? And are you able to help them in some of those other factors? Amy, let's go to you first.
I honestly find that many times the depression goes hand in hand with pain, and oftentimes the pain that's coming out is from emotional pain. Your body has a really amazing ability to protect yourself, your mind, by putting emotions and situations, kind of locking them into your body and into your muscles. So I really find that a lot of times there's a huge connection between situations and depression that lead to physical pain, and vice versa. Once your body becomes suppressed, you kind of naturally, your mind eventually becomes suppressed and depressed. So I really have found in my practices throughout the years, working with people in pain and chronic pain, that not only is there physical injury that adds to it, which leads to depression, but there's a lot of times situations, whether past or present, that actually feed into that. And I find that once you can kind of open up and deal with that and let stuff out, many times that pain that's connected will subside with letting go of the emotions within the body.
I think that's really wise, and I think that I'm personally, for me, I found that having a support network of friends is so helpful. Friends who don't mind you coming to them and talking about your pains a little bit, your personal feelings, but we're all different. I know some people that wear their hearts on their sleeves, so to say, and they'll tell anybody willing to listen. And then we have other people, like, there's only a very few number of people in my life that I feel that comfortable with opening up with. But I value those people so highly in my life that I don't ever want to picture my life without them in it. And of course, giving and taking go hand in hand. They are the same way. If they ever have problems, they can always come to me. And we find that after we've had one of our sessions of crying on each other's shoulders, oftentimes we feel that there is this great lifting of the spirit, this weight off the shoulders, and that leaves us feeling so much better afterwards. Pamir, what are your thoughts on the whole, well, your mind-body pain management specialist stuff?
Well, first of all, let me just concur with you. Having a support system is very important, even if it's just one person, and being able to share in a safe environment, that's key. I just want to make a little distinction between pain and suffering, and pain is mostly more physical, and suffering can be in the psyche. And pain, physical pain, can lead to mental, emotional suffering or spiritual suffering as well. So there's a little bit of a distinction between pain and suffering. But really, anytime we have pain, whether it's a physical type of symptom or depression type of symptom, it's always an opportunity. It's a portal, really. The thing about pain is that pain or suffering, we never want to feel pain. So when it happens, we contract and we pull away from it. But actually, the answers are right there in the pain, because pain is a signal. And earlier you said something about how the pain leads to spirit. It's actually a two-way street. Really, ultimately, there are definitely ways that you can alleviate pain just by dealing with the pain itself. But really, the best way for more permanent alleviation of pain is really to go to your spirit and to live from that connected place. And then you have the broader perspective, because pain happens in time, and it's actually one thing that's happening to you. It's one small thing that's happening to you. In the moment, it feels very large and very dramatic, but when you look at the bigger picture, if you come from a connected place, if you come from your spirit, in the big picture, pain is just one little blemish, one little dot in that painting that is you. So that really helps you to shift your perspective, and it brings you many more resources to deal with your pain and suffering than if you were just dealing with it from a small place locally.
Can you tell us, for the benefit of anybody who's never heard of Reiki, what exactly is that? What do you do as a Reiki practitioner?
All right. Well, my little elevator speech for Reiki is that it's a way of living with wisdom and compassion with the added power of self-healing. And it's really just a very simple, practical, down-to-earth teaching that anybody can pick up and learn if you go to a qualified teacher. That involves meditation and self-healing. With the healing, you also gain the ability to help others, but it's primarily for the person. And Reiki is a spiritual living, healing art, like I said, that anybody can learn, that blends with anything else that you're doing to enhance yourself. Whether you're doing things in your business to enhance yourself, if you're into exercise, supplements, vegetarian eating, whatever else you may be doing to enhance yourself, Reiki will blend with that, but it's also a standalone teaching and practice that for our modern times, it doesn't take very long to apply, it doesn't take very long to practice, and the learning curve is not so steep. And so, you know, you can learn Reiki's taught in levels. So you start with level 1, obviously, and once you complete the class, then it's practice-based. You just bring it into your daily life, and you have this companion there with you to help you through any kind of difficulty.
Thank you for that. Now, I want to move, as we go into the 9:30 section of this Hangout, I want to move into talking about nutrition and healthy eating and taking care of our bodies. At the holidays, we get so many junk foods around us and tasty treats and desserts, and we tend to say, you know what, it's the holidays, it's okay, at this time of year, I'm just going to go all out, especially at Thanksgiving. And all of a sudden, our healthy diets that we've had for the rest of the year tend to go out the window. And I think that that is possibly one of the things that contributes to the whole holiday blues effect, because if you're feeling good, if you're feeling nourished during the rest of the year because you're pretty good with your diet, if you're one of those people that's kind of conscious of your diets, and then that goes out the window, it really does have an effect on your body. I know I feel the difference after getting that box of cookies sent from the relatives that you can't turn down. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Before we get into that, though, we've got another guest who joined us in Peanut Gallery. That's Amiee Wyant. She was a former featured guest on the TGIF. She has a business called Silver Moon Bay. Hi, Amiee. Give yourself a quick introduction, please.
Hi, I'm Amiee Wyant, and I have a designer hospital patient gown company called silvermoonbay.com. And I joined today because I'm interested in the subject, and I also, well, I don't know if this is the place. I wanted to ask Pamir, what exactly is Reiki? How do you do it?
Pamir, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please, first. And thank you, Amiee.
Hi, Amiee. Hi. I did answer about Reiki a little earlier. I'm not sure if you saw that. No, that's fine. I'm gonna answer in a different way now. But you can go back and watch that portion, and also visit my blog. That's in my bottom of my picture there. But Reiki is applied with the hands. It's hands-on healing. For healing purposes, you basically are able to put hands on yourself. And that's one of the unique features and benefits of Reiki compared to similar teachings that are out there that can only be applied to other people. Combined with meditation. It is a meditative teaching, and it's also used for self-healing. And it's holistic in the sense that it addresses the whole person. So it's not just for physical healing, but healing in the psyche, mental, emotional challenges, anything like that, as well as health. I always say my hands are my HMOs. So that's just a short description of Reiki.
You say Reiki is hands-on healing. What is the difference between Reiki and massage?
Well, massage is manipulation of tissue. It's much more of a physical experience. It can lead to other things, but the application of it is, and Amy can speak to this, in Reiki, when you put your hands on yourself, the hands are static in each position. Then you just move from position to position. There's a protocol that you follow, but the hands are static, and it's basically a transfer of vibrations of peace, healing, love, joy. So it's much more of an energetic healing art, although the word energy is overused, and I don't like to use it so much, but people do understand that. So that's one way that I can describe it. But it's really a vibratory healing art, and not physical manipulation of any kind.
Does that have to do with chi at all? Like your
yes.
Sort of come from that same background?
Very much so. The word Reiki, the last two letters Ki, ki is the Japanese word for chi, and Reiki comes from Japan originally, so it's a universal teaching, but the founder is Japanese.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for clearing that up for us.
Sure.
Okay, so also I want to mention, if anybody has any questions, please post them in the comments underneath the event page. Also, if you'd like to join us inside the Hangout, this is a casual business networking Hangout. You're welcome to come in and ask our panelists your questions yourselves. You can just leave a request to come in the comments underneath the event page for the video. Brian, before I move on to Amy, do you have any questions thus far?
No, I have no questions thus far, except does everyone follow the group chat?
The group chat, we do.
Okay. I have a message for Amy then, which I posted out there. You're missing an E in your love is a way of life. It took me a long time to find your...
Oh, is that right? Okay. Let me change that. Thank you very much, Brian.
I'm a good editor as well as a writer.
Brian, our resident mistake catcher. And you know what? I love that about Brian, actually, because Brian sends me emails whenever he's looking at my site and he finds a typo or a mistake. And to me, that is like, I should be paying him for this service. So that is actually one of the services Brian provides, I think, for people professionally, isn't it, Brian?
It's one I'd hope to expand on, but right now I just do it out of love.
Well, he does a very good job at it. So if you ever need a proofreader for your copywriting, I do encourage you to contact Brian because he's really good at it. So excuse us for that little tangent, but hey, this is a networking show, and that's what we're here for. Amy, let's get to you now. Tell us a little bit about nutrition and healthy eating, and what is your definition of healthy eating? Because I know that we all have different definitions of healthy eating, but I see a lot of healthy eating awareness kind of growing these days. What's your definition of healthy eating, and how does it relate to keeping us in good spirits?
Well, I think definitely every body is different, and every body has different reactions to foods and things like that. Healthy eating to me is really listening to your body and what it needs. Personally, I like to juice. I like to really connect with things that come from the earth versus processed foods versus foods that are high in sugars, high in the kind of saturated bad fats. It's really, really, food is medicine, and you really have to kind of listen to your body and listen to what it wants. When I kind of fall off the wagon during the holidays and have a little bit of chocolate or have something like that, I definitely feel it. And although it's okay to every once in a while indulge, I think you really, again, need to listen to your body and listen to what it wants. Healthy eating, if it makes you feel good, and I don't mean temporarily that sugar rush, I mean that, you know, it doesn't bring you down, it doesn't drag you down, it doesn't get you sluggish, it doesn't give you the headaches and things like that. I think that's really what healthy eating to me is, and it's really that food body mind connection. But things from the earth that actually were provided for us to nourish our body.
I mute myself. Hello. What are some of the bad habits that are easy for a self-employed person, an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, and even a busy working person who works at a regular job? What are some of the bad eating habits that are easy for us to fall into just due to our sort of hectic schedules and lifestyles?
One is not eating, kind of forgetting about yourself, forgetting about your own personal needs. As an entrepreneur and as a self-employed person, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. It's not a 9-to-5 thing. It's a constant. So kind of neglecting yourself, pushing yourself too far, or grabbing that quick thing that you just need because you need to get to the next place. And usually that quick thing is not generally food. It may look like food and smell like food, but it's not really food. It doesn't have the nutrients that your body really needs to keep going. And I think that's a big pitfall for self-employed people, is neglecting what your body is really needing and taking the time for yourself and for your nutrition to really keep you going in a positive direction of motivation and forward, instead of getting stuck. And I think that's a lot of what happens with entrepreneurs, is we're so busy trying to promote ourselves, to move forward, to grow, that we really forget to take the time and stop and give ourselves and our bodies and our minds the time that we need to be able to do the next thing. We're in such a rush in the society, and it's always a go, 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 and bigger expectations and more. But I think more should be really replaced with quality and not quantity.
Wow, that's really good. I'm trying to type that out as a quote real quick. I can't type as quickly as you're saying it. But I'm actually really glad you touched on that, because I think it was just the last show was an open networking hangout, and Pamir joined us, and he said much the same thing about a lot of times it's easy for us to forget to take care of ourselves, and we have to actually make sure that we make time to do that. And I know as a solopreneur, we're often, you know, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this. And what I mentioned in the beginning of the show about, oh, working shorter hours, well, you know, I used to get off the clock at 5, and now I'm going till 7 p.m. Pamir, I saw you turn your mute off. You have more to add to that?
Well, I just wanted to concur wholeheartedly with what Amy said, and also just maybe put another spin on it. You know, we live at a time when we are hyper-stimulated. We have so many signals coming at us from the outside, and food can be considered a signal as well. You were talking earlier about, you know, Christmas time eating or holiday time eating, and all the goodies that are out there, which are delicious, and we shouldn't deny ourselves. But at the same time, you know, we do overindulge. So if we think about signals coming at us and go back to the depression piece of this hangout today, and whether we're dealing with food or other signals, I mean, as far as food is concerned, what I would recommend is around the holidays, maybe just fast a little bit right before the holidays and fast after the holidays. And fasting, you know, it doesn't have to be a big deal. People think, oh, I can't go without food, but you can skip one meal. As long as you lighten your load, your intake, that's a type of fasting. You don't have to fast for 24 hours. You don't have to do a water-only fast or a juice-only fast. You can just skip one meal and just sort of prepare your body for the holidays, and perhaps after the holidays do a little bit of a cleanse by fasting, or, you know, a tea cleanse or something like that. But as far as the depression part too, and all these signals coming at us from the outside world, we're just so hyper-connected, from our phones to this, what we're doing right now, to the computer, all the social media. Back in the day, browsers only had one tab. Now you can open multiple tabs. And I was really happy about that when it first happened. But then now when I want to write something, I have to shut everything off so I can actually write. So really, depression is something that happens when we disconnect and we feel disconnected. The type of depression that we're talking about here, not clinical depression as you were saying at the start there, Melanie, but just the everyday type of bouts of depression that we might go through is really just a symptom of feeling disconnected. And the only way to really disconnect is to disconnect, literally, from all the signals, the external noise. And we have to distinguish between signal and noise. Is it noise? Or is it something worth our time? Is it going to nourish us? Or is it going to just, make us hyperactive or force us to multitask or whatever the case may be? So spending quiet time is a way out of depression, because then you connect to yourself and you connect to what's important to you. And out of that, you can really prioritize exactly which signals you're going to pay attention to and which ones you're going to just ignore.
Wow, those are really great words of wisdom. And I have to say, in personal experiences, that I agree exactly with what you're saying. Before we went live today, we had Jim Alt. Hi, Jim. Came into the green room to say hi to us all. And he asked me about something, would I be available this weekend? And I said no, because the weekends are really important to me to make that disconnect. And oftentimes people are like, why can't I reach you on the weekend? Because I purposefully don't sign in to Google Plus oftentimes on the weekend, because that's my business social. I might go on Facebook, which I don't use for business, and I just do that to keep in touch with my family and look at pictures of the babies and things like that. But that's very, very different. And a lot of times on the weekend I like to just disconnect. And then I like to go and look outside my windows at this gorgeous mountain view that Brian and Annie know well, because we all live in the same area. And we're surrounded by, and Amy too, sorry Amy. We're surrounded by mountains. We have a little bit of snow cap on top. And that is so important. When I don't do that, when I never turn off, when I never disconnect, I lose sight of myself and I lose sight of pretty much everything. And you talk about meditation, Pamir. It's constant filling with noise. And I think people used to have a lot more quiet in their lives and a lot more time to reflect before this age of the internet. And it's going to be interesting to see, I think, as people who were born into this age are growing up, what the ramifications of that are going to be as far as depression are related. But if I don't turn off, I get depressed. And I get that way if I don't stop and eat my lunch. I make sure I take an actual lunch break where I go and I cook whole, healthy foods. And I actually get flack for it sometimes from people that are like, what? You're taking a lunch break, a full hour lunch break, and cooking something? And I think that that's something that we do now as a society, that we expect us to always be available, and we expect us to always be on the go. And to me, that's just depressing. Amy, do you find that is the case as well? And I love that Pamir brought it back to how what we're talking about relates to depression. So what you were talking to us about, eating whole foods, foods that come from the earth, and healthy foods, do you find that you as a business owner and an entrepreneur get kind of pressured to skip your lunches and just get something on the fly real quick?
I do. I really find that people expect you to always be there, always be on, whether it's a Facebook or your email or your text messages. People really expect that instantaneous, constant availability. And for me, I really have to set boundaries. I let people know I don't have Facebook on my phone. Voicemail is there for a reason. If I don't pick up the phone, it's usually because I'm doing something else. I'm not always available because I have to do things that I need to do, which include, like you said, Melanie, taking a break, going out and taking a hike, staring at the mountains, connecting with the hummingbirds or trees or whatever it is that keeps you grounded and connected to the reality, not the virtual reality that we're so used to and we're so really been acclimated the last 15 years or so. It's really changed our whole world. And I really find that a lot of people just don't understand that. They get really kind of anxious if you don't answer them right away. But for me, I really have to set boundaries as far as this is when I'm available. And if I'm not available, please leave a message. I'll call you back, or leave an email or whatever it is. But I can't constantly be on, because if I am, I can't give you my best. If I'm not rested or connected or have some downtime, I just can't. For me, I'm not a superhero. So I really find that, yes, it's very important to set those boundaries and figure out for yourself what it is that feeds you and your soul, and what kind of things that you need to do to take those breaks. I think it's really important. And like you mentioned, Melanie, cooking your food. I think having a connection with your food and preparing it is hugely important, not only for your nutrition, but for your connection with the earth and spirituality and what's real in life. We get so caught up in expectations and presenting the perfect person all the time and presenting in the perfect way, and that's just not reality. We have to really be honest. And I think that's a big thing, is honesty and integrity and being true to yourself.
I love what Pamir said about fasting, and the tip he gave that you don't have to make it a day-long or week-long fast and drink only water. You can just skip one meal and that's a fast. And I think that's a really helpful tip for people, because to think, oh, I have to give up eating for a whole day or 2 whole days, that is a somewhat daunting task for someone who's never done it before. But one meal, just one meal, that's something that we could probably do. And also doing it that way, baby steps, it's something that helps us build our willpower and may enable us to strengthen our willpower, so that when some of those things come along during the holidays that we wouldn't normally ever eat, but we find ourselves wanting them, it might help us to build our willpower to skip those things. Let's talk a little bit now about the kind of pressures that people feel to have the perfect TV holiday family get-together. And what are some ways that people can deal with the stresses that come with trying to make the reality meet the fantasy, and when the fantasy is sometimes unrealistic? How can we take steps to remind ourselves that okay, we have to have more realistic expectations? What are some tips that we have to help people to avoid falling into those traps in the holidays of having to be everything to everybody? Who wants to go first? Amy, you smiled, so I'm going to pick on you.
Okay. I think really the first step is really being honest. Really, really getting honest with yourself and those around you, and knowing your limitations, and knowing what you can do, and really setting your expectations for your own life. We're very, very much kind of taught to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. And I think that's just not where everybody's at. I think you have to know where your own happiness lies, where your boundaries lie, where your limitations are, and where your strengths are, and really play off those strengths, and be really, really honest with yourself and those around you, and communicate where you are and what you can do. And I think that's highly important, because I think when we try to live up to the pretenses of the the world and the TV and the Norman Rockwell and all of that, it does lead to depression and anxiety and extra pressure, and your mind literally kind of spins in those cases. And I just think it's really, really important to know yourself and really listen to yourself and be honest with yourself and others about what it is that you can and can't do.
So ask for help with the dishes afterwards. Ask for people to help. Don't just be there to try to serve them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Make it make your world a community of people and network that you can trust, and really play off of each other's strengths instead of trying to meet the expectation, and then when you don't, you're not good enough, or you feel guilty, and then that leads to anxiety, which leads to depression and all of that. I think it's just really, really important to tap in and to yourself and listen to what your body and your mind is telling you.
I do kind of remember back in the day when I was a kid, I think this was Thanksgiving. I'm not a football person or a sports person, so it might have been Christmas, but there was a big holiday dinner, and there was also football games on, and and I remember the mom going and cooking all this food and making a meal for everybody there, and then everybody enjoys the meal. Oh, it's great. And then afterwards, like, the men would just go in the living room and watch football, and mom would be stuck doing all the dishes. And even as a child, I was like, what's up with that? That's just kind of not fair. So I always, I've never been in the same situation, fortunately, but I always remember thinking that if that was ever the case, if I was at one of those things, I would make it a point to say, no, nobody gets to go watch anything until everybody helps clean up. And I think that I could see how moms could be depressed, and feeling that they're not being appreciated. So I think another tip is to, not just for the people who are suffering the blues, but for us to be helpful to those people and to be kind to each other. Show your gratitude when somebody invites you to their home. Show your gratitude. Don't just, go watch the game and kick up your feet while they're doing all the cleanup. Offer to help. Help them do the cleanup. Help them do the prep. Whatever way you can help, please offer. And I've seen so many times back then when they offered and they said, no, you don't worry about it, I'll do it. Another tip is, accept the offers. Let people help you, because then you end up doing it, and you have conversation and you talk, and it takes it from being a drag of a chore to something that's another way to spend time together and be connected and have fun. Pamir, would you like to add on that at all?
Sure. One of the things that I've read recently is if you are going to ask a family member for help with the dishes or trimming the green beans or whatever it is, they're more likely to cooperate and do it willingly if you say the word because. For some reason, when the brain hears the word because, even if it's something redundant like, well, could you please do the dishes because the dishes have to be done, even if it's something as redundant as that, that will make them much more cooperative and willing to do it. The other thing with holiday overwhelm is, again, with the brain, if the brain knows when you're going to do a task, then there's much less stress about it. So scheduling all your tasks and letting your brain know that this task will be done at this time tends to create less stress. And then you mentioned gratitude, and gratitude is just so very important. There are so many things that can be said about gratitude. We can do a whole show on gratitude, but we take so much for granted, and there are so many small things that are so important to us, and taking moments to reflect on all the good that's in our lives just helps us come from a place that's already full. And then we launch into experiences that are even more fulfilling. And one last thing, again from research, is that when people invest their time and money in experiences rather than material things, there's a whole lot more satisfaction from that. In fact, there's additional research on that, where if you give a gift to a person that's an experience rather than a material object, the gratitude also is much more than if it was just a physical gift. So invest in experiences rather than material objects.
And I think a great example of that would be, you know, it's time to go Christmas gift shopping, and you have to bring your family members or your kids with you, and that can be stressful. Well, you know what? There could be a day where instead of going Christmas shopping and thinking about material things, you know, maybe you stay home and you make homemade Christmas ornaments for the tree. That is a family event. I like to make my own ornaments. This is why I thought of this. That, you know, I print out pictures of my loved ones and from fun times that we had, and we took pictures. And it's just cardboard. I use a box that I have. I reuse a box. I cut out the cardboard, and there's this glue that you can use to put on top of it. So you print a picture out, you glue it to the thing, you top it with the same glue, and it dries into this sort of like shiny glaze, and put a little glitter around the edges, and there's this nice homemade Christmas ornament. And when you're doing this with friends, it's really fun. It's like having arts and crafts day, friends or family, and then you exchange them as gifts, and I treasure those really highly. Those are like great gifts to me because they come from the heart, and they were fun to make, and you had this wonderful experience making them. There's no stress involved, there's no fighting crowds, there's no do I have enough money, there's no getting in line. So that would be an example of one way of doing what Pamir says and exchanging experience with others and for some kind of material thing. So before I go any further, Annie or Brian, do you either of you have any questions?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Annie.
Well, I'm finding that this holiday season, I have been really busy as an entrepreneur, but this is the first holiday season that I have the opposite problem of whatever we've discussed, which is I moved here from Los Angeles. I have two sons. One moved to Minnesota. The other one has now got a girlfriend. He's spending Christmas with her family and Christmas Eve at church with her. My mother's in a memory care unit in a home, and so I was planning on spending Christmas with visiting my mother at the home, and my ex-husband is coming here. And it really feels very empty. This is the first time this has ever happened to me, and on top of that, and this is kind of a question for Amy, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I think I eat a really healthy diet within the limits of being a type 1 diabetic, so I can't live on grains and stuff like that. I do eat a lot of them anyway because I don't like to eat meat. But I also had an experience 2 weeks ago where I all of a sudden got an unexpected infection from a skin puncture, which ended me up in Desert Regional Medical Center for 4 days and on intravenous antibiotics, and was told, protein, protein, protein. If you want to heal this, you need to eat protein, the idea of which made me really sick. So two, one, how do I deal with this new identity and not feel depressed over the holidays of not really having a family holiday? And two, what kind of protein could I eat to have so much protein without eating a lot of animal protein? Hello?
Go ahead, Amy.
Well, beans are very high in protein. So black beans, kidney beans, garbanzo beans, things of that nature. Your blood sugar, you can have cucumbers, which will lower your blood sugar naturally. I think you really need to find things for you as you go into your new normal and your new life, your new experiences that really uplift you. I think that you're really going to have to start listening to your body and finding what makes you happy, finding a connection, a friend, whether helping other people, whatever it is that fulfills you as you kind of start to quote unquote lose those connections with your son as he goes off and finds his new life. You'll now have to discover what your new life is and what your new normal is, and that is not an easy thing. It's very much easier said than done. Believe me, I've been through a lot of different things in my life too that are not so nice, and it's been a very, very tough year. But I think the thing that gets you through it is really, really figuring out what makes you happy and fulfilling your needs and being really honest about how you feel about your son going and whatever's going on with you, and finding people who can connect with you and you can connect with that have the similar experiences or can really relate and understand where you're coming from. Because I know that when our life changes, a lot of those old connections that were there before and that we had really strong connections, they don't always understand what you're going through. So I think it's really important to find a support system, whether it be family and friends or other people who are going through the same experiences or similar experiences as you. That's really, really important for you to find out what nurtures and fulfills you so you don't feel left out in the cold this year and kind of flailing and not knowing what to do.
That, I think, is some great advice. An example I could think of there are a lot of holiday networking mixers out here in the valley, in Coachella Valley. And if you attend some of these holiday networking mixers, there are a lot of people here who are older and whose children have flown the nest. And, you know, I think it's absolutely fine to reach out and say, hey, is there anybody else also kind of having an alone holiday this year? Why don't we all get together? That was actually something that I did when I first moved to LA from Florida, because I left all my family and people behind on the East Coast. And when I came out to the West Coast, I didn't really know anybody, but I had met a lot of other people who also moved there from other places, and we weren't going home that year, and we all got together and had a Christmas potluck dinner, and those were some of the funnest Christmas memories that I have. So something I hear a lot of other people say also is volunteering, because then when you're volunteering on something, whether it's going to, you know, Martha's Kitchen or your church and helping with a holiday meal for people less fortunate, then you find yourself surrounded by people and surrounded by gratitude, and that's really helpful as well. And then it also reminds us of how fortunate we are, especially when we're helping people who are less fortunate than ourselves. So I think those are a couple of tips that can help people who are facing aloneness during the holidays. I'm glad you asked that, Annie, because that was actually going to be my last question of the day. I had experiences where I lost people to death in December, and I started calling it Deathcember instead of December. But I've made a conscious decision that I have to change that. And, you know, it was really hard, and it's not easy. It's still very hard. When the Christmas music comes on and it's real cheery, and it just reminds me how cheery I'm supposed to be, and I'm not feeling cheery. I'm feeling sad and missing the people that I lost. Well, you know, I would just turn it off and not want to put any decorations up and not want to do anything. And I'm still kind of struggling to come out of that mode, and I decided this year that I wasn't going to turn the music off. I'm going to listen to the music and fill my mind with images of spending it with the new people in my life. And I'm talking about my pets here, so sorry. I lost my mom in December, and I lost one of my fur children in December, and I have a couple new fur children now. So instead of thinking about how sad I am not to have my mom around and how sad I am not to have my old fur children around, I'm thinking about imagining in my mind the new fur children on Christmas with whatever gifts I'm giving them and playing with them and trying to build new associations to that Christmas music to replace the old associations that I have of sad memories. I'm trying to replace those with happy memories or happy thoughts. And the struggle is then you want to feel like, oh, but now you're just forgetting the people you're leaving behind, but you're not. You're always going to remember them. So that was what I had to add. It's 10 o'clock, but I'm going to let Pamir add to this because I know he's got something good to add.
Thank you.
It's over.
Thank you. Chomping at the bit here. Annie, first of all, I feel for you. Just know that. The one good thing about being in this more mature phase of life is that there's a whole lot more time. I mean, once family obligations are done, being a parent obligations, being a mother, being a partner in a marriage obligations are done, you know, it may be a good time for you to go back inside and figure out all the things that you've wanted to do that had to be left to the wayside because there were more pressing issues in those years that you were raising your children, being a wife, etc. So, you know, this is a good time to actually cultivate some of those hobbies or take that workshop or go on that trip or whatever it is. We have to reinvent ourselves. I mean, there's just no way around it, and we're constantly asked to reinvent ourselves. You know, people grow up, go to college, get a job, whatever the case is, and they think they're set, but life asks us to reinvent ourselves all the time, and it can be very difficult because you're like, oh, I thought I was done with that. I don't have the energy for that. Really? You want me to create something new? But hey, it could be fun, you know. You know, that's what I would say is just go ahead and maybe go back to some of that bucket list that you might have had that just never got touched, nothing was checked off of it, and see what you might engage your energies in at this point.
I love that, Pamir. What a great way to think about it. And again, I think this boils down to our viewpoints and perspectives. So a lot of our depression and the blues we get come from perspectives that we've been in the habit of having, and trying to change our perspectives to more positive ones. For example, what Pamir said about, oh, it's a great time to do, instead of, you know, the perspective, I'm going to be alone, the perspective of, wow, I remember these things I always wanted to do, but I never had time before because I was too busy doing this and too busy doing that. Well, I'm going to take the time now that I have and do that thing I always wanted to do. And that totally changes it from the perspective of being sad and lonely to looking forward to doing something that you've always wanted to do. That was excellent, Pamir. Thank you so much. Brian, let's see. 3 different ways you said giving to others makes you feel better. That's what I say too. Well, come on in and say it.
That was funny when you were talking about how the holidays kind of have this assumption that you're going to do things, you're going to spend money, you're going to go shopping, you're going to eat more, all those things that you don't do otherwise. And I'm firmly committed to not changing my life, except that I do more things for my wife to see how can I make her happy, how can I surprise her, how can I make things better for her. So as Pamir was saying, in an experiential way, is that what you said? That I'm trying to give my gifts in a way of just making things better for you and not giving you something that you can hold in your hands or, you know, some new thing. It's a gift of service, I guess, is the way of saying it. So putting up the Christmas lights before she asked me to, shipping a package, she said, can you take this package to the post office for me? And I don't know of anyone who says, yeah, that's something I love to do, but it doesn't matter. I just go do it, and then I feel like there's no denying this is my gift to you, is the service that I provide willingly without complaint.
And Brian, I have to ask you, do you feel rewarded for those? When have you noticed that as you give of yourself, are you also receiving in return? What is the response you get?
Well, that's the thing that I was thinking about, is that I'm not looking for the response. I'm doing it for myself because it makes me feel better when I do these things. So it's the giving of...
I mean, I understand that, but yeah. I think that naturally a response just kind of happens. And so even though you're not looking for it, are you still getting it?
Absolutely.
I mean, because it's kind of like karma, what they say. What you put out comes back to you. And so I'm trying to see, are you experiencing that this is what's happening?
Let's just say things are very, very good at home these days. It's not because I'm wealthy, so there's that. That's an easy way of saying it.
Wow, that's awesome. Annie, did you get your question answered? Did you find any helpful advice in there? Oh, and unmute yourself, please. Oh, unmute yourself, Annie. We don't hear you. And unmute yourself.
Yes, one of the things that Pamir said that really was helpful was about reinventing yourself, because I should have made it clear. I have been invited to Christmas parties. I do have a mother. I actually have a boyfriend. I'm not spending Christmas with him because I invited my ex-husband so he would have to see our son that lives with me, even though he won't be here because he'll be at his girlfriend's. But I was still feeling really blue, and I realized I do have to reinvent myself. I've reinvented myself in the sense that here I am on this hangout. I have a meetup group about desert gardening, this and that. I have plenty of activities, and I'm a practicing Buddhist, but still I have to reinvent myself in my own mind as to who I am, because I was the person that makes the fabulous holiday dinner, and everybody came to my house, and I loved that. I loved being a really great cook and having people appreciate my cooking and stuff like that, and I can't be that person, so I have to learn how to just find the joy in maybe not having to clean up all those dishes like you said, Melanie, because that did used to bother me. And I also feel inspired, just so you know, Pamir, because my mother is struggling so hard that she used to teach at UCLA, and now she's in a memory care unit at an assisted living facility, and she feels totally demoralized. And I'm going to tell her, look, Mom, I heard some great advice that applies to you as well as me. It's difficult, but we have to reinvent ourselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I'm going to eat the beans too, okay? Amy, I'll try eating more beans.
Well, you know, I hate to wrap this up, but we are at 10:08 and it's overtime, so I'm going to wrap it up. Annie, I will just remind you that, as Pamir pointed out earlier, we have all these resources available to us, and I'd be happy to talk to you about my own experiences afterwards.
Sure.
As a vegan or vegetarian, I'm not strict. I try to be strict. I'm strict at home. But going into getting sources of protein, I found a lot of information out there on the internet on how to get full sources of protein, and I get a lot of it. So I'll share some of my recipes with you and sites that I found where you can find all this information for vegan sources of protein. Thank you so much to everybody who came in today. Thank you, Amy and Pamir, for being the special guests, and thank you, Annie and Brian, for joining us. What a great episode of the TGIF Business Networking Hangout. Thank you, everybody who is viewing, and I hope that this episode was helpful in giving you some tips for how to beat the blues during the holidays. This is our last episode of the year, woo-woo, which is why I was a little bit lenient in letting it go over. And I'll see you next year. And next year, the focus on TGIF is to continue bringing sort of holistic and health-oriented information to small business owners and entrepreneurs, how to take care of yourself, and of course, business stuff too, how to do things like use your WordPress websites, things that will be helpful. If you have any requests for topics that you'd like to see, or if you'd like to be on as a featured guest on the TGIF Business Networking Hangout, and you have information that's great for small business owners, please do send me a message on Google+. I'm always looking for good guests. I don't care how many followers you have. I don't care how much of a superstar you are. I just want to know that you have some great information to share. And we are newbie friendly. Anybody who wants to come in and try out a Hangout, please contact me. I'm happy to help you out on TGIF. Have a wonderful holiday season, everybody. A great weekend, a happy December, and an even better 2015. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you.
Please enjoy.
Thank you.